On the equator lies an island nearly the size of Greenland, cloaked in rainforest and mountains that swallow maps and secrets alike. This is New Guinea, a continent-sized mystery disguised as an island. Two-dimensional maps shrink it. Perception belittles it. Yet when the globe is measured honestly, New Guinea stands as the second largest island on Earth, just behind Greenland and almost its equal. Placed over Europe, it would stretch from England and northern France nearly to the Black Sea. Set over the United States, its length runs from the edge of Long Island to the outskirts of Dallas and Fort Worth. New Guinea is larger than most outsiders ever imagine. Size is only the beginning. Up to 80% of its surface is smothered in rainforest, the third largest on the planet after the Amazon and the Congo. Some call it the second Amazon. Through its center rises a spine of mountains known as the New Guinea Highlands, a chain comparable in length and stature to the Rockies. Here stand the highest peaks between the Himalayas and the Andes, the loftiest summits ever raised on any island. This collision of dense jungle and towering stone has preserved vast swaths of land from modern footprints. Even now, there are places uncharted and unvisited, and in those places, revelations wait. Among the most surprising discoveries are frozen. High above the equatorial canopy, the island's highest ranges have nurtured glaciers for thousands of years. Temperatures fall as the rain climbs, snow gathers, ice compresses. These are among the few tropical glaciers on Earth, and they have endured well into modern times. Yet their endurance is failing. Historical images and modern satellites reveal a relentless retreat. In the mid-19th century, their area was measured at about 19.3 square kilometers. Photographs from the 1930s showed their brilliance. By 1972, they had already lost nearly two-thirds of that expanse. By 2018, more than 97% was gone, leaving only half a square kilometer. Data from 2024 placed the remainder at just 0.165 square kilometers. If present trends continue, the last ice of New Guinea may vanish by the end of this decade, leaving the island and Indonesia without glaciers for the first time in many thousands of years. New Guinea itself was once part of a larger story. During the last ice age, when seas were lower, it was joined by land to Australia in a single continent known as Sahul. Geologically, New Guinea sits on the Australian plate, which explains its kinship with Australia's wildlife. Marsupials thrive here. Patterns overlap, and while the giant island is now surrounded by water, echoes of that ancient connection endure in its ecology and its people. This environment is a cathedral of life. Since 2010, thousands of species from plants to insects have been formally described from New Guinea. Most are small and easily overlooked. Yet sometimes the forest lifts its curtain for larger players. In 2025, a biologist captured the first photographs of the subalpine woolly rat in its natural habitat, high in the island's mountains. A heavy, shaggy rodent over 2.5 feet long and more than 4 pounds, known previously only from a few museum specimens. In 2018, a researcher photographed the elusive Wandoi tree kangaroo, a 20-pound arboreal marsupial last seen in the 1930s and once written off as extinct. In 2023, cameras recorded the first confirmed video of a live long-beaked echidna from the Cyclops Mountains, a creature known for decades only by a single specimen. The work to find it was punishing. One team member fell through moss into an unknown cave, broke his arm in 2 places, and still emerged with a handful of newly discovered blind cave dwellers. Another endured a leech attached to an eyeball for 3 days. These are the costs that the island demands for revelation. Mysteries in New Guinea are not limited to wildlife. They include people. Papua New Guinea, the independent nation that controls the eastern half of the island, lives with a stunning uncertainty. Its true population remains unclear. A 2024 national census counted just over 10 million people, yet questions surround that tally. Fires, lost forms, incomplete coverage, and the sheer difficulty of reaching remote villages have produced doubt. Only about 13% of the population lives in cities. Most villages are anchored in rugged interiors, accessible only by air. A separate satellite-based study funded in 2022 suggested nearer to 17 million people. In the 21st century, a modern country may be missing millions in its own count. Geography shapes the balance between the island's halves. In the west, steep mountains tumble abruptly into rainforest and mangrove swamps choke the coast. In the east, parallel ranges cradle a broad highland plateau, cool and fertile, where dense populations have grown for generations. Those same mountains press down to the eastern coasts, carving bays for modern ports and cities. Geography grants access in the east and withholds it in the west. Within this labyrinth, human diversity explodes. Across the island, more than 1,000 languages are spoken. In Papua New Guinea alone, there are over 840, nearly 1 in 7 of all languages on Earth. History here never assembled under a single central authority. Valleys were sealed by peaks, and rivers were barred by jungle. Communities lived for centuries unaware of neighbors only a few kilometers away, shaping their own tongues, their own customs, their own names for the world. Two lingua francas, an English-based Creole called Tokpisin and an indigenous language known as Hiri Motu, help bridge distances, yet less than half of the country speaks either. Communication remains as complex as the terrain. The island's timelines stretch far back. Humans arrived as early as 60,000 years ago, among the first waves to leave Africa. Over time, the people of New Guinea became distinct, shaped by isolation and ancestry. Their genomes hold more Denisovan DNA than any other population on Earth, often between 4 and 7%, and in some highland communities even more. Isolation did not mean stagnation. At Kuk Swamp, evidence shows that agriculture emerged independently around 8,000 years ago. Here, bananas, taro, and sugarcane were first domesticated. Centuries later, Austronesian settlers reached the island and added their own languages to the mosaic. And around the 13th century, the sweet potato arrived from South America, likely carried across the Pacific by Polynesian contact and trade. In the highlands, this single crop transformed life. It could grow in cool uplands. It could feed pigs without cooking. Populations swelled. Societies became more complex, all within an island interior that most of the world had never seen. The modern world did not meet these highlands until the 1930s. Europeans had reached the South Pole before they had reached the center of New Guinea. When aircraft finally lifted explorers over the Green Wall, they expected emptiness. Instead, they found a thriving highland civilization, perhaps 1 million strong, living a way of life shaped by stone and soil. The astonishment is captured in faces on both sides, visitors coming upon an unexpected world, Highlanders witnessing metal tools, firearms, and aircraft for the first time. It was one of the last great first contacts between large societies in human history. Not all encounters ended in wonder. In 1961, Michael Rockefeller, the 23-year-old son of a powerful American political family, vanished along the Asmat coast of what was then Dutch New Guinea. His small catamaran capsized near the Betsy River. 2 local guides swam to summon help. Rockefeller and a Dutch anthropologist clung to the overturned hull. Hours passed. Fearing the open ocean, Rockefeller stripped to his underwear, strapped 2 empty jerry cans for buoyancy, and tried to swim to shore. The boat and his companion were found the next day. Rockefeller was not. The official conclusion was drowning. Later accounts gathered by missionaries and investigators told a darker story of vengeance killings, bead by bead, claim by claim. In 2015, forgotten film reels from 1969 revealed a white man paddling among Asmat warriors. The image sparked new questions. Was he a survivor, an outsider integrated into a tribe, or simply a stranger caught on camera in the right place at the wrong time? The truth remains elusive, but the mystery endures. Another story of New Guinea is told in shadows. In 1949, after the Second World War, the Netherlands recognized the sovereignty of Indonesia over the former Dutch East Indies, except for Western New Guinea. The Dutch held that the indigenous Papuans were distinct and not yet ready to govern. Indonesia disagreed, claiming the territory as its own. The Cold War bent the arc. In 1962, under international pressure, the territory moved to a temporary United Nations administration with a promise of a vote. In 1969, that vote involved 1,025 hand-picked people who cast their decision in the presence of soldiers. The result favored union with Indonesia. Since then, A pro-independence movement known as the Free Papua movement has resisted. Indonesia's response has been severe. Reports describe a tight security regime, restrictions on journalists and monitors, and harsh penalties for symbols of independence. Academic studies and human rights reports have alleged large-scale killings and displacements over decades. A resettlement program brought hundreds of thousands of Indonesians to the territory. Today, settlers and their descendants may account for about half of the population west of the border. The conflict flared again in recent years. In 2018, after attacks on a strategic road, Indonesia launched its largest operation in decades, including major army deployments and air raids, with allegations that chemical weapons were used. In 2023, the capture of a New Zealand pilot by fighters of the Free Papua movement drew rare global attention. After more than 19 months, he was released alive. The struggle continued in relative obscurity, its human cost poorly recorded behind barriers of distance and control. This is New Guinea, a vast island of ice and fire, of orchids and armor, of languages born in isolation and ideas forged in the highlands. It is a place where agriculture took root on its own, where lost species step back into the light, where a population hides behind ridges and river bends, uncounted and uncontacted, where a mystery can survive for half a century on a single sliver of film, and where a modern conflict unfolds far from the world's eyes. When the map distorts New Guinea, it is not only the size that disappears, it is the scale of its stories. In this equatorial giant, discovery is not a moment, it is a way of seeing. The rainforest and the mountains still hold more. And the next revelation may already be waiting beneath the canopy, above the clouds, or in the pages of a ledger that finally counts everyone who has always been there.